Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the D-Rate the Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. Friends, today I'm very excited to bring you a conversation that goes way beyond the same old talk about DEI. This isn't just another conversation about diversity for diversity's sake. My guest today, Delphia Howze, is someone who brings a fresh, real perspective on what it truly means to create inclusive environments, and as you're about to hear, much of it starts with personal accountability. Delphia is the CEO and founder of Howze Solutions and serves as the Chief Inclusion Officer at a national laboratory. She's been a driving force in the diversity and inclusion space for over 2 decades, with experience across industries, from banking to retail to energy. Her approach is grounded in real-world results, helping organizations not just tick the diversity box, but truly harnessing the power of human capital to drive meaningful change. We're diving into her new book, Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are, where Delphia takes a different route. She challenges each of us to look inward, to reflect on our own biases, and understand how they affect the way we interact with others. It's about more than just policies or training sessions. It's about stepping up and having the hard conversations and using something called appreciative inquiry to really bridge divides and foster genuine understanding. We'll talk about why giving people the space to be themselves is the real key, instead of forcing our own expectations on them. And the best part? It's not about pointing fingers. It's about how we can all do better, one step at a time, and how that personal growth creates positive ripples around us. Friends, if you're ready for an honest, no-fluff conversation on what it actually takes to create inclusive spaces in your life and work, then stick around. This is one that's going to shift your perspective. Let's get into it with Delphia Howze. Here we go. Delphia Howze, thank you for joining me on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am grateful to see you today. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Delphia, I was so pleased when I saw you had reached out to us here at the D-Rate the Hate podcast. When I saw this book that you've written, it's called Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are. Everybody knows that, everybody that listens to the DTH podcast knows that one of my favorite things to do is bringing people together, mending divides, showing people that we can all come together despite our differences and ultimately make the world a better place. And that begins with each of us as individuals. When I looked a little bit into your book and the work that you've been doing, Delphia, it really stood out to me. I appreciated it, and I thought we could have a fantastic conversation. So again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes.
First of all, let's just start with what led you to write this book, Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are.
Yes, thank you so much. And again, I want to thank you for having me on this show, this podcast, and being able to share a sentiment with you in the space that we can work together right? We all have personal accountability. So what prompted me to write this book was the fact that I've been doing this work for more than 25 years. I've been in the space of human resources and diversity and inclusion for 25 years in a number of different industries, and I see the same thing. Right? The tide isn't shifting. People are hesitant to engage in the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, unless it's their explicit responsibility for the work. So it's what I've noticed is that many people are sitting back waiting for someone else to come along and say, okay, here's your inclusive environment. Now it's time to go. And what I believe is that we all can take personal accountability to create more inclusive environments. It doesn't have to be a specific role or job, but just through some very strong point or basic points of awareness, we can shift the narrative so that we have more inclusive environments and we're not thwarting the opportunity for people to come together. And so I really decided to write this book about a year ago, simply because it's time, right? We've been working on the same thing, diversity and inclusion, for a long time, but we're not really honing in on inclusion as an opportunity to bring people together that values diversity, brings diversity, sustains diversity. Inclusion will sustain diversity. And the reality is we all have felt excluded at some point in time in our lives, right? Whether it was back in kindergarten, at the last meeting that we had at our organization, or, in the grocery store. We've all had that experience. It didn't feel good. Most people that I've spoken to didn't feel good. So let's not have that in our workplaces.
No, that's absolutely right. And so there's a couple main things that I want to touch on there that kind of strike me as being very important high points in that. And the first one being, as somebody who leads people, who mentors leaders and believes a lot in the concept of true leadership, I love the fact that you talk in this book about how it's not just the responsibility of the leader. In my opinion, leadership is obviously, well, not obviously, but for people who have listened to me or been part of different things that I do, I talk about how leadership is really about providing the environment for others to succeed. Yes. But when it comes to the inclusion part of that, you really cannot force inclusion, but trying to build an environment that everybody becomes part of the inclusivity is incredibly important. And I think it's one of those things that becomes perpetual. It becomes natural once it starts happening and once it's continuously promoted and that environment, it just becomes natural to the environment. Yes. And I like that. So talk then, Delphia, about how not only a leader, but we talked about how it's important that everybody is involved in that. What are some of the things that people can do to be part of that inclusive environment, be part of that inclusive nature within a particular environment?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And so thinking about the book really takes the reader from a very basic mindset of just simply understanding the language, right? Understanding what diversity, equity, or diversity and inclusion actually mean, the terminology, so that we're all on the same page. There may be nuances based on our experiences, but really creating that space where people understand what we're talking about, and the nomenclature that helps us to move forward together. So that's the first place. The first thing is really understanding that. The second thing is understanding that our words matter, right? And so when we think about how we just make statements that could be exclusionary, that are, create this divide of us versus them, Most of the time it's unintentional. Most people don't go out into the world and say, hey, I'm going to berate, create discrimination, or do these things against another group of people or a person.
Sure.
It's oftentimes people don't know how to engage. And so what is required for one to be able to engage is to understand themselves. So there has to be a very strong opportunity for self-reflection, understanding your biases, where they've come from, because we all have biases, and it's okay to have biases. Perfectly okay. Question is what you do with them. But understanding where they've come from and how they surface and when they surface, against whom and against what, or for whom and for what. So I think those three things are really the basis of helping us to understand how we can lead personally with inclusion.
Oh, for sure. And I want to unpack that a little bit, because I think it is important for people to understand that we have we have our cognitive biases, we have our unconscious biases, we've got these different things which are all part of us, right?
Yes.
But until each of us start to understand ourselves, and unpack what that is, what is it about our life experience that has led us to believe these certain things, we can't confront them. And like you said, not all of them are bad.
Absolutely.
So then let's take that to the next level, Delphia, is when a person begins to encounter, people who they feel divided with, who they feel like they are having a hard time including in a certain thing.
Yeah.
What are some things that they can actually do? What are some of the things that they can look at internally, that internal reflection or retrospection, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that an individual can do to say, okay, maybe this is a divide that is without basis. Maybe this is something that I need to work on. What can a person do to try to unpack that within themselves?
Yeah, and I love what the word that you just used. How can you unpack it, right? So the first thing is to recognize it. And so it's oftentimes we don't recognize it, right? Because it becomes it's our norm. It's the way in which we operate. So likely there will become, for any human, for any individual, there will be experiences where people help you to see that for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so what can you do to unpack it? First, you have to really explore the basis of it, right? If an individual recognizes that, for some reason I cannot seem to connect with, people with purple hair. I'm just going to say that, right?
Sure.
And anytime someone with purple hair comes around, I feel odd. I don't feel comfortable. They don't seem to engage with me, and, all of these things. Then it's time to think about, where did that come from? Likely it came from life experiences. Mm-hmm. Either they remind you of someone or something that creates a level of discomfort. You're unfamiliar. So when we're unfamiliar with things, we automatically shy away from them and sometimes go into an element of fear. And if we don't explore that, where it's come from, we miss the opportunity to even move forward. So once we know where it's come from, then we can identify, okay, how are people actually being impacted? Are they being impacted in a way where I'm stereotyping them? Or are they being impacted in a way where there's discriminatory behaviors, or I'm creating microaggressions against them and don't even give them an opportunity to show who they truly and authentically are? So it takes a bit of vulnerability for an individual to shine that flashlight on themselves and say, ooh, I need to look within first. If I may, I'll share a very quick story that happened to a friend of mine who is a Jewish man, right? And he's engaged in this type of work of diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, all of those things. And he shares a story of him driving in DC. And if you know DC, there's by the White House, it's pretty considered safe. And then you go a couple of streets over, it's a little different, right? Long story short, he was driving in his new vehicle with the top down, and he was at a stop sign, and a group of African American young males began to walk across the street. And what did he do? He reached over to lock the door. And he said,
Okay.
well, wait a minute, I'm in a, and at that moment, he saw one of the guys turn and look at him, and he said he felt like such a fool because his top was down. So if they really wanted to get him, they could have, could have gotten him. And the fact that he does this work, but something within him caused that bias to surface. Mm-hmm. Whereas he said, ooh, in this moment, I'm unsafe.
Yeah.
And so, if we don't take a moment to reflect, first of all, identify those biases, reflect on where they've come from, there's nothing that we can do with them but allow them to surface at the most inappropriate times that creates exclusion or separation.
No, that's absolutely right. And I love the story. I love the example, Delphia, that, because it is foolish. And anybody that looks at that is like, okay, even the people with the best of intentions, often find they have these unconscious bias, and then they will, perform some kind of foolish act that really, has maybe no basis in reality, right?
Correct.
Whether it be, you're walking down the street and you see somebody that appears in your mind to be intimidating for whatever reason, whether it be their action or some immutable characteristic of theirs that, and then you choose to cross the street, and then after a second you're like, why did I do that? What was it within my own mind? What was it within my own experience that caused me to do such a thing? And I think that the most important thing now there's a couple things I want to say here because being this is part of what I do so often is number one, it is foolish in a lot of cases to do these things, but not all acts of I guess self-preservation in situations like this are stupid, right? Correct. But what it is you need to look at yourself and try to examine, what were my actions for? Because the act in itself of locking my door, to try and, now the act of locking my door when the top on my convertible is down is pretty darn silly, right? We can all admit that. But, was there something more there that was going on? And and then the second part to what I want to say, and I'll kind of get your opinion on this is it's not always because and there are a lot of critics that will automatically jump to saying, oh, well, this is an act of racism or this is an act of whatever, and then they will demonize or castigate that person for doing such a thing.
Correct.
I think it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yes.
Because we have to allow people, just because of their human nature, to do the things that they are going to do out of natural self-preservation.
Correct.
But then they also, I think the second part of that needs to be the important part of the self-reflection. Why did I do this? Was it because of, was there something that was happening in the action of this group of people that made me fearful?
Correct.
Right? Or was it, strictly because they were African American, a young group of African American people, right? It's like, okay, well, that is only for the person in that situation to decide, because when we start to ascribe motives to people who we know nothing about, and then it becomes it just becomes a battle that is completely unnecessary. We have to give people the latitude to be people. We all are we all have our, like I said, we all have our biases. We all have our faults. We all have our fears. But quite often our fears, Delphia, are unfounded.
Yes.
Because of the lack of inclusion. Because like my friend Monica Guzman, quite often says those who are underrepresented in our life will be overrepresented in our imagination.
Correct.
And then, as my friend Daryl Davis, and I'm not just trying to name drop here, but these are very profound concepts that I want people to understand,
Yes.
is that which we do not understand, we will begin to fear more. You know, he gives the example of, being in a classroom and talking to a bunch of children, and then there's a snake under that chair, and then they instantly, kill it, kill it, kill it. Well, it's because they fear the snake, but they don't really understand the snake. They don't know the snake. They don't know the snake is no threat to them.
Correct.
Yes. So talk a little bit about that, because I think people too often now are very judgmental.
Yeah.
When they don't quite understand that it is not always with nefarious intention that people commit certain acts.
Correct.
But sometimes they're just fearful. Sometimes it's just a natural self-preservation. Sometimes it's just pure ignorance, but it is not with evil intent.
Yes, definitely agree. And research will say, or has shown, that for the most part, that's not the case, that people are going out in an attempt to be discriminatory or treat others badly. It is a matter of self-preservation, right? Which we all, right, experience that. That is our one mode of existence, is to enter in self-preservation. And that's the purpose of bias, right? Bias is designed to help us to determine safe from dangerous, right? And so it's going to surface without, below the conscious, subconsciously, unconsciously. So that's going to happen. But the interesting thing, in addition to that, is when those acts happen against people, it is a likelihood that we try to label it. Oh, as that's racism. Oh, they don't like women. Oh, they don't like, whatever the case may be. But what I talk about and what I teach and try to share with people is that if we assume good intent of individuals, that gives us the space to begin to ask the questions. Beautiful. If we do not automatically jump to the conclusion that that was an intentional aspersion against our person, then we can begin to say, even to the individual, hey, help me to understand, why did you reach over and lock that door? Or help me to understand what this is about. And, so that we can engage in dialogue. We're not talking to one another simply because, we as a society, and I'll speak of you as society, we automatically assign negative behavior, punitive actions, punitive mindsets for anything that questions our person.
That's right.
That's what we do. And instead of doing that, my suggestion is practice appreciative inquiry. Take the time to be vulnerable and allow others the space to say, hey, you know what? I don't know why it happened. I had a previous experience, or I'm just uncomfortable, so that you can engage in dialogue. If we engage in dialogue, we will get so much further than we are today on so many fronts. But not just dialogue for the sake of speaking words, dialogue for the sake of understanding one another. The judging to valuing mindset says that, we all start by judging others. That's what we do, right? You meet someone for the first time, 30-second impression, we formulate it. We formulate it based on what we've experienced, who we've known, what we've done, and all of these things, right? That happens. And actually, research is saying it happens less than 30 seconds. And so that's a short period of time to have that gut reaction determine everything about a person, right? But if we take a moment to get beyond that, let's call it a ladder, beyond that rung of judgment, get to the point of understanding that people are going to be different from us, and it's perfectly okay. They will have different experiences, and they will act on those experiences differently from us. Then we can begin to respect the fact that people are different. And only when we respect can we engage in dialogue that helps us to value the differences that people bring to the table. So it's very progressional. Unfortunately, there's not a switch that we can turn on that says, You will now no longer be biased. You will now, that's not something that we can do because we're going to live with this for the rest of our lives, quite honestly. It's a human condition.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it is a human condition, and we all are different, and we need to appreciate our differences. Not only the differences in our backgrounds, not only the differences in our immutable characteristics, not only there are so many differences in our differences, and so many nuances into how we are different people. But one of the things that you said, number one, the practice appreciative inquiry is such a beautiful way of saying that. We talk in the circles that I run in. We talk a lot about have curious conversations, which is another way of saying that. But I've never heard it said quite the way of practice appreciative inquiry. I really like that, Delphia. But again, if we are not talking, going back to what you said, if we are not engaging in dialogue and engaging in dialogue with the intention to understand, that's when our ignorance, and there's nothing wrong with ignorance. It's just the fact that we don't know. Too many people get all aflutter when they hear the word ignorance because they think it's an insult, but it's not. It's simply the act of not knowing something.
Right.
And I love the idea, and why I work so hard in this space of bridging divides, is because if we are not talking, we tend to hate more.
Yes.
If we are not talking, our ignorance stands in the way of real progress. Our ignorance turns into fear, and that fear turns into anger, and that anger turns into violence. So if we are not engaging in that dialogue, that's why so much of what I talk about is a better way to engage.
Yes.
And having our differences, appreciating our differences, having that curious conversation with people, whether they agree with us or don't agree with us. At least we can ask them the question, what is it about your life experience? Your gentleman friend in D.C. What is it about your life experience that led you to reach over and lock that door?
Absolutely.
Instead of immediately casting aspersions on him and accusing him of being something that he is not, right? What is it about your life experience that led you to do this thing? How did this come to be? You know? If we are not having the conversation, it does not take long for the hate to grow and the violence to start.
Absolutely. 100% agree. 100% agree. And, it's so wonderful to hear you say that, because, more people need to hear that. Need to hear it, right? It seems very elementary to even say that. We even have to say that out loud. But I think that, it's necessary for us to hear those actual words and the value of those, so that we can begin to find a way to consider them to make it a reality.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. It is elementary, and for us that do this kind of thing, it seems like it. But for those who get caught up in that fear, outrage, and grievance culture out there,
I love that.
It's a harder step to take, and a lot of times it's just that first step that's the hardest, because once they make that paradigm shift, and I know you talk in your book about making that a number of paradigm shifts, I believe, but once they realize that there are, it's very unfortunate for me to say, but that, like I said, for us that work in this space, there are forces out there that wish to keep us divided. So they will use that fear, outrage, and grievance to keep us divided. And by keeping us divided, like Yasha Monk says in his book, How Do Democracies Fail? It is very easy, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but it's extraordinarily easy to make people hate each other when you can keep them divided.
Yes.
And if we keep each other divided, or if we allow those forces to keep us divided, we will continue to hate each other, and we will continue to see ugliness and violence.
Yes.
So let's take this back then to your book, then Delphia,
Sure.
and there is let's talk again about that shared responsibility and the commitment to that should permeate every level of our life. Not, and I don't want to talk about just in a work environment,
Yeah.
but in in our communities, in our personal lives, in our work lives. But what are some of the things that people can really do to take this? I don't even like to say DEI, because I think DEI gets a real bad rap because it's been weaponized and used in weird ways. But the individual pieces are very important. So to take this thing and to take the including you, leading inclusion from where you are, what are the big things that you want people to understand? Because we're nearing the end of our time.
Sure.
What are the big things that you want people to understand about how they can include this stuff where they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. I think that, if I could boil all the fat off of it and just, make it very basic, I think the big thing is the concept. If you look at the word inclusion, now this is going to sound very silly maybe, but it's the reality. The word inclusion begins with I, right? Starts with me, but it cannot exist without you. So if you spell that word out, it begins with I, can't exist without you. And so if we really, want to take a message from my book or a message to help us move forward, to engage in dialogue, to bridge the gaps of connectivity, of valuing one another, of creating inclusive environments, we have to recognize that first, we have to check ourselves. We really need to. It's easy to point that finger at someone else and say, it's all you. You need to fix your stuff over there. But as our grandparents told us, how many fingers are pointing back at us, right?
Yep. For every finger you got pointing forward, there's a few more pointing back at you.
Exactly. So it starts with us. And we all, every single person, can do something. So it's something as simple as saying hello to another person, giving them a warm, welcoming greeting. You don't have to do massive activities. So starting with that, and then really realizing that to have the you in any inclusive environment, professionally, personally, at the park, at a ball game, whatever the case may be, you must give that person the opportunity to be themselves. You have to do it. Yep. And not allow yourself to set the expectations for who they are and what they're expected to do and how they're expected to act based off of your experiences.
Such an important point.
Yeah. So
that is such an important point. You've got to give people the latitude to be themselves. You've got to give you've got to give people leeway without impressing your own expectations on them. Let them be who they are. And one of the things that I like to say so often, Delphia, is we don't know what everybody's life experiences are. Yes. We don't know what storm they are going through or what storm they just came out of, what things they are dealing with, or what the ugliness that they've experienced is. So we just need to be kind. Let people be who they are, and show them that we have the ability to listen to them in a way that we are truly trying to understand who they are. If everybody does that and it becomes a reciprocal, a perpetual and reciprocal cycle, if that makes any sense, the world is just naturally going to become a much, much better place.
So true. So true. Can I share a quote with you?
You
Based off of
absolutely
what you
can.
just
Yes,
said?
yes,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh,
Delphia.
you just warmed my heart. So in my book, the first chapter, I love the concept of alchemy. I'm not a scientist. I work in a science lab, but I'm not a scientist. No one wants me in the lab, and that's not a good thing. But I love the book, The Alchemist, and I speak about that in my book as the opportunity for us to transform, right? To change, to bring all of these elements together to create a better place. And I just want to read this quote from the author of The Alchemist, and he says, "That's what alchemists do. They show that when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too." It's as simple as that.
That is right.
It's as simple as that, right? Strive to be better by understanding yourself, by allowing individuals to be who they are. And it's a guaranteed phenomenon or output that everything around us will become better as well.
That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. Delphia Howze, this has been an incredible conversation. Just an absolute pleasure. The book is Including You, Leading Inclusion from Where You Are. I'm so grateful to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Well, it was wonderful to talk to you, and let's keep it going.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the Derate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.